The night was eerily quiet as the darkness of the deserted street wrapped itself around the lone truck speeding down the road. The headlights cut through the fog like a knife, but no matter how far the truck driver, James, drove, the eerie silence never seemed to break. New York was known for its bustling streets, but not all parts of the city had the same life. Some parts were dead. James, a seasoned truck driver, had taken this route hundreds of times before, but tonight felt different. The air was heavy, and an unshakable feeling crawled up his spine. He glanced at his rearview mirror, expecting to see the usual stretch of empty road behind him, but there was something else. A shadow. It was quick, but it was there. A dark figure standing on the side of the road. He could feel his heart race, but he told himself it was just his mind playing tricks on him. The streets of New York had seen everything, from the glimmering lights of Times Square to the darkest alleys where no one dared to step. Yet this part of the city was different, forgotten. James shook his head, dismissing the thought, but then it happened again. Another shadow, now closer, standing motionless in the distance. The chill in the air deepened, and the fog seemed to grow thicker. He pressed his foot harder on the gas pedal, hoping to outrun whatever he had seen, but the figure seemed to be keeping pace. Was it following him? As the truck roared down the narrow road, the strange sensation of being watched gnawed at James. The sounds of the city felt miles away, and all that existed was this chilling road. The closer he drove, the more something felt off. Suddenly, the truck's lights flickered. For a split second, everything went dark. Bang! A loud noise, like the sound of something slamming against the side of the truck, echoed through the night. James slammed on the brakes, his heart pounding in his chest. He stared ahead, barely breathing, as the world around him went silent. What was that? To be continued. James's hands trembled as they gripped the steering wheel, the truck now coming to a slow stop. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The deafening silence pressed in on him, thick as the fog that surrounded the truck. He knew something wasn't right, but what? He couldn't see anything outside the window except for the swirling mist, like it was closing in around him. "It's just my imagination," he muttered, trying to calm himself. He was a professional driver, and he'd been on roads like this before, but tonight was different. Something wasn't adding up. That noise, that bang. It wasn't a branch or a rock or any other thing he could explain. It sounded human. His eyes darted to the rearview mirror once more, half expecting to see something lurking behind him. Nothing. With a deep breath, James decided to move forward. He turned a key, and the truck's engine roared to life again. The lights flickered, but stayed on this time. He was about to pull away when something caught his eye, a figure just beyond the fog. The same dark shape he'd seen earlier, only now it was closer. It was standing at the edge of the road, completely still. James froze, his pulse racing. The figure was tall, wearing a dark coat that blended into the night, its face hidden by a hood. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of James's shallow breathing and the rumbling of the truck's engine. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, staring at him. Should I call the police? James thought, but the phone in his pocket felt suddenly heavy, as if something inside him knew he wouldn't be able to explain the strange presence out there. Not in a way that would make sense. Just drive. Keep driving, he told himself. But as he stepped on the gas, something strange happened. The truck didn't move. It wasn't the engine. The gears were working fine. The accelerator was responding. But the truck remained stationary, as if an invisible force was holding it in place. James's heart pounded in his chest. He slammed the gear shift into reverse, desperate to break free from whatever was trapping him. The truck lurched back, but then, with a sudden sickening jolt, it stopped again. His eyes shot back to the rearview mirror. This time, there was no shadow. There was nothing. But when he turned forward again, the figure was gone. Gone. Just vanished. For a brief moment, the world felt normal again. He didn't know if he should feel relieved or terrified. But before he could make up his mind, the radio in the truck crackled to life with a burst of static. "Leave now, before it's too late." James's breath caught in his throat. The voice was low, distorted. A warning, or was it a threat? Then the engine sputtered. The headlights flickered again. No, 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 James thought, his hand shaking as he gripped the wheel. He needed to get out of there. But the question gnawed at him, was he already too late? To be continued. The truck's engine sputtered again, and the headlights flickered one last time before staying dim. It felt like the entire world had gone dark. James's hands were ice cold, his mind spinning. That voice on the radio, was it real? Or was he losing his mind in the midst of the heavy fog and isolation? He glanced at the radio, as if it could offer some explanation, but nothing. Just the low hum of static. James wiped the sweat from his brow. This was insane. What was going on? He looked out the window again. There, in the distance, he could see the faint outline of the road stretching on endless, dark and empty. He tried to start the truck again, but nothing happened. The engine didn't respond, as though the very heart of the vehicle had been stolen from it. Panic surged through him. He banged the steering wheel in frustration. There was no way he was stranded out here, in the middle of nowhere, with whatever was watching him. Suddenly, from the corner of his eye, James saw something movement. The fog had begun to roll in thicker now, swallowing the road in front of him. He squinted, trying to make out the shape. At first, he thought it was another person, but the figure was far too tall, too unnatural. The figure stepped closer, dragging its feet along the wet asphalt. It was hunched, almost like a creature from the darkest corners of the mind. James's blood ran cold. His heart pounded in his chest. He knew now it wasn't a person. It wasn't anything that should exist in this world. The figure grew larger with every step, its presence like a shadow that stretched across the entire road. Its face, obscured by the tattered hood, was now only inches from the driver's window. James felt paralyzed, his breath coming in short gasps. He tried to turn the truck on again, but the keys in his hand slipped and fell to the floor. His body was frozen in place, as if some invisible force had gripped him. He couldn't move, couldn't look away. And then the voice returned. Only this time, it wasn't from the radio. It came from within the truck. "Leave now, or you will never leave." James's eyes widened. He was trapped. His mind raced to find some way out of this nightmare, but it was as though time itself had slowed down. The world outside the truck blurred, and the figure's movements became distorted, unnatural, like it was sliding through space, not walking. He tried to scream, but no sound came out. The air was thick, suffocating, like the entire world was holding its breath. The figure raised one long skeletal hand toward the window, tapping it lightly with a finger that seemed far too long. Tap, tap, tap. And then, with a horrifying creak, the truck door slowly opened by itself. James tried to grab the handle, but his hands wouldn't obey him. It was as if his body had become foreign to him. The figure was standing at the open door now, towering over him. Its eyes, or what should have been eyes, were two hollow black voids, consuming all the light around them. The air in the truck became unbearably cold, and James could see his breath forming in the thick mist. The stench of rot filled his nostrils, and it was all he could do not to gag. "Why are you here?" The voice inside his mind echoed, the words seeming to come from every direction at once. "You shouldn't have come. You shouldn't have come here." The temperature in the truck dropped even further, and James's body began to shake uncontrollably. He wanted to run, to escape, but he couldn't. It was as if the truck had become his prison, and the road outside was a trap he could never leave. "Who are you?" James finally managed to gasp, his voice trembling with fear. The figure's lips curled into a smile, a grotesque, empty grin, its teeth sharp and jagged, like those of a predator. It leaned in closer, its cold breath brushing against James's face. "We are the forgotten," it whispered, its voice a raspy hiss. "The ones lost to this road. Lost to time." Suddenly, the figure stepped back, and the entire truck jerked forward as though it had been thrust into motion by some unseen force. The engine roared to life again, as if it had been revived by the figure's touch. The headlights illuminated the path ahead, but the road stretched on farther than James could comprehend. In front of him, the road appeared endless, twisting and winding, looping back on itself, as though the very landscape had been warped by an otherworldly presence. The truck's tires screeched as the vehicle picked up speed, the fog blurring into a wall of white around him. He glanced at the dashboard. The time had stopped. The hands of the clock had frozen at midnight. His pulse quickened. He was trapped in some kind of time loop. Every road he passed seemed to lead him right back to where he started. It was as if the truck was driving on an infinite, haunted loop, and there was no escape. Suddenly, the radio crackled to life again, but this time, the message was clear. "It's too late." James slammed his foot on the brake, but the truck didn't stop. Instead, it accelerated. His heart thudded painfully against his chest as the world outside seemed to distort further. The road ahead was no longer a road, it was a swirling vortex, like the very fabric of reality was tearing apart. The figure was still there, standing at the edge of the truck watching him, its hollow eyes locked onto his. And for the first time, James realized what it wanted. It didn't just want to scare him. It wanted him to stay trapped in this endless nightmare forever. And as the truck barreled forward into the void, James understood. He wasn't just lost in New York anymore. He was lost in time. James's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel as the truck hurtled through the endless fog. The roar of the engine was deafening, but beneath it, something else pulsed an eerie hum, like the road itself was alive, breathing with malevolent force. The figure had disappeared, but its presence lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating. He tried to focus on the road, but it twisted, it turned, it looped back on itself. No matter which way he steered, no matter how hard he pressed the brakes or the accelerator, the truck kept moving forward into the same stretch of empty, fog-enshrouded road. Was he stuck? He looked down at the dashboard. The clock had stopped. The date, the time, everything was frozen, trapped in an eternal midnight. He couldn't even remember how long he'd been driving. Minutes? Hours? Or had it been days? "No, I can't stay here." The thought burned through his mind like wildfire, but the truck refused to slow. He wanted to scream, to beg for help, but the voice inside his head grew louder. "You'll never leave, James. You were never meant to escape." The voice was all around him now, not just inside his head but filling the very space in the truck. It felt like the truck, the road, and everything around him had become a single, massive entity, suffocating him, pulling him deeper into whatever cursed dimension he had stumbled into. He slammed the truck into reverse, hoping against hope that he could break free, but the tires spun uselessly, skidding on the wet asphalt. The road was unyielding, like it had been designed specifically to trap him, to feed on his fear. Then, without warning, the fog ahead cleared, revealing something that made James's blood run cold. James's hands were white-knuckled on the steering wheel as the truck hurtled through the endless fog. The roar of the engine was deafening, but beneath it, something else pulsed an eerie hum, like the road itself was alive, breathing with malevolent force. The figure had disappeared, but its presence lingered in the air, heavy and suffocating. He tried to focus on the road, but it twisted, it turned, it looped back on itself. No matter which way he steered, no matter how hard he pressed the brakes or the accelerator, the truck kept moving forward into the same stretch of empty, fog-enshrouded road. Was he stuck? He looked down at the dashboard. The clock had stopped. The date, the time, everything was frozen, trapped in an eternal midnight. He couldn't even remember how long he'd been driving. Minutes? Hours? Or had it been days? No, I can't stay here. The thought burned through his mind like wildfire, but the truck refused to slow. He wanted to scream, to beg for help, but the voice inside his head grew louder. "You'll never leave, James. You were never meant to escape." The voice was all around him now, not just inside his head, but filling the very space in the truck. It felt like the truck, the road, and everything around him had become a single, massive entity, suffocating him, pulling him deeper into whatever cursed dimension he had stumbled into. He slammed the truck into reverse, hoping against hope that he could break free. But the tires spun uselessly, skidding on the wet asphalt. The road was unyielding, like it had been designed specifically to trap him, to feed on his fear. Then, without warning, the fog ahead cleared, revealing something that made James's blood run cold. James slammed on the brakes again, but the truck didn't stop. It moved forward of its own accord, its wheels grinding against the road. The mansion seemed to draw him in, the air growing colder, thicker. "No, I don't want to go in there." But the truck refused to listen. As it crossed the threshold of the mansion's crumbling gates, the ground beneath him shifted, opened like the earth itself was swallowing him whole. The headlights of the truck flickered one last time, illuminating the dark, empty courtyard before them. And in that moment, the truck jerked to a stop. The world went deathly still. For a moment, James sat there in total silence. The truck had stopped moving. The air had stopped moving. Even the fog seemed to have been swallowed by the cursed space. And then, just as he thought he might be safe, just as he thought maybe, just maybe, he had finally escaped the nightmare, the door opened. It creaked, slowly, like the final breath of a dying man. A hand reached in from the darkness, cold, grasping, pulling. It was the figure. James tried to scream, to fight, but his body wouldn't move. He was frozen. A suffocating darkness flooded the truck. And then, James was gone. The truck, left abandoned on the cursed road, its lights still flickering in the thick fog. No one would ever find him. No one would remember him. The road, however, would remember. It always did. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You never know what horrors might be lurking in the shadows. Stay tuned for more spine-chilling tales.